Hey, this is Jason Hayes, and one of the greatest blessings we have here at Threads is friendships and relationships with great people, whether pastors, ministry leaders, whoever. The point of this interview series is about connecting you to those people so you can get a chance to know who they are, what they do, and how their lives are all about the cause of Christ. So let's get started. Hope you enjoy. Hey, we are here with Dave Barnes. Dave is a great friend of mine, and many of you know Dave as a prolific singer, songwriter, performer, comedian, a little bit of everything else that comes in the midst of all of that. So Dave, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You'll see that Dave has a fantastic sense of humor, and we're really looking forward to just getting a little bit greater opportunity to know him in this next few minutes. So Dave, for those of us that already know you, as well as some of us that are just coming in contact with the legend that is Dave Barnes, who's been acclaimed by the likes of John Mayer, Bonnie Raitt, those type folks. Give us a little bit of your backstory, who you are, and kind of how you came to be the person that is Dave Barnes.
Well, was born in South Carolina. Lived there for a little while. My dad is a preacher, as you know. And so we moved when I was 6 years old to Mississippi. So really grew up in Mississippi. Was there for about a decade, where most of sort of my formative years were.
Where in Mississippi?
Kosciuszko, which is where Oprah was born.
Nice. And I did see on like Google, you were Wikipedia. You were like right below Oprah.
Actually, I passed her. Yeah, I know.
That's nice.
Income and popularity.
I like it. So Kosciuszko.
Yeah. So lived there for about 10 years. It was a small town in Mississippi, 8,000 people, tiny. And so, you know, it was a really, really great place to live. It was really safe. You could ride your bike literally anywhere in the town.
Sure.
And lived there, and then we moved to Knoxville, where other legends have lived and were born.
Don't take into that for a second.
You know, was there for 2 years of high school, and then went to Middle Tennessee. Started really doing, you know, the singing and songwriting there.
Yeah, tell me how music is played. I mean, all of that. As we grew up together, you were a drummer and would never consider thinking about singing in front of folks, more or less picking up a guitar. Tell us about kind of that transition and how you developed as an artist.
Yeah, you know, when I got to Middle Tennessee, I was really, really interested in playing drums. That was why I went. That was what my major was at the time. And it was really interesting because I couldn't really practice as much as I wanted to on drum set. The lessons I were taking were more on the classical instruments like marimba and timpani and snare drum and things like that. So, and I couldn't go to my room and practice because I was in a dorm room. So, oddly enough, my roommate at the time had a guitar. And so I sort of started playing his guitar. And it was a really natural progression for me to write songs and sort of do that. So it just kind of happened. It was nothing, you know, so many people ask, like, so what made you want to start writing? And it really wasn't that as much as it was just something naturally happened. I started playing, and to me, guitar was sort of a way to write songs. It wasn't an end into itself, you know. Where a lot of people start playing and they really get into the playing, I sort of got into it because I was like, hey, this is a way that I can do, you know, write songs and do music and stuff. So from there, you know, just played in college. It wasn't really a serious thing until probably my last year. Yeah. Started playing at other colleges, sort of trying it out, seeing how people thought about the songs that I did, and then from there, it's really just sort of took a life of its own.
Yeah. Well, I know that for those of us that have followed you over the years, and one of the coolest things about the way that you've kind of established your platform is so much of that grassroots kind of behind-the-scenes movement amongst young adults and collegiates and those folks. And we know you as this amazing performer. We know you as someone that we spend money to go and hear. But again, as you said, so much as to what you do is songwriting. And I know that's impacted even me personally. Dave played in Carrie and I's wedding, as a matter of fact. Tell us a little bit about that songwriting process, kind of what's your inspiration, not necessarily 1, 2, 3, exactly the steps, but really where you find, what you find to be able to write songs.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's a lot like with you and writing and doing your books and doing blogs. I think some of us just have that need to express ourselves in the written word, or in my case, that and music. And so for me, it really is, you know, somebody asked me a question a few years ago, and I realized the sort of power of this weird gifts that God has given me. But they said, you know, if there's one thing that you couldn't do that you really think you would die from not being able to do, other than like breathing and eating.
Yeah, which are both important.
Which are, and I enjoy both doing. But I realized after I thought about it, not very long, a few seconds, I said, you know, creating. I really think for me to not be able to create, I'd go crazy, you know. And so I think the process to me is, you know, life, and I think especially arts really inspire me. Life in some ways, but probably more music, more like movies, things like that, you know, they sort of tend to set my brain to a certain frequency that I can then sort of do what I do, you know. Yeah. But it's so interesting because it's for something that wasn't a part of my life at all 10 years ago, it's arguably one of the biggest parts now. You
Absolutely.
know?
Well, you mentioned that you were a pastor's kid. You mentioned relationship with the Lord. Tell us what and how faith plays into all of this, as far as a performer, as far as a songwriter, and just as a person who stands in front of a lot of people each week.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it's probably a common answer, but it's the truth. It's the North Star. You know, it's like there's no doubt I couldn't do what I do if my faith wasn't there. Because you know, being a performer is so interesting, and you may feel like this from speaking, but anybody that's in that limelight, there's such a temptation to really believe that you deserve that, or there is something that's really that different or special about you. And I do think God gives these unique talents to people that that reflect His glory, and that's, I think, what we all are so in awe of, is not that you're an amazing speaker, but wow, God has manifested Himself in this way in you, and that's what we're all sort of, we're so attracted to.
Right.
And so with me, it's the reckoning. It's the great reckoning. It's sort of the divining rod for, like, you have to remember it's not me that people like. The things about me that are great are all the Lord's manifestations in me, you know. So I think for me, it's an absolute, you know. It's just to have some sense of a litmus test in my life, of a constant, like on those nights you think, boy, I'm really something, aren't I? Yeah. You know, the Lord's like, excuse me? You're like, just kidding. You're something. I'm just a vessel.
Yeah.
It's a good word, but I think you know, it's essential. It really is. And I think I can see the times in my life where I've struggled the most, and those were the times where I wasn't acknowledging the Lord in that journey. I was trying to take things on myself, which then I couldn't handle. Right. You know, my back would break under the pressure of that. You know.
Yeah. Tell us about Africa. I know that it's connected to all of those things. Quite honestly, it's connected to so much of your faith journey, and I know that's connected so much as to the way you write, and also even if you want to talk a little bit about Mocha Clubs and how you are involved with that.
Well, you know, I think that the biggest thing with my career, and it being a very peculiar career, because as a believer, I'm playing mostly, you know, bars and clubs and some colleges and a church every now and then. You know, for me, Africa, and talking about my friends there and the people that we're trying to support, has become in some ways the reason that I do what I do, because I think, you know, it's really hard to talk about my faith in really clear ways from a stage where people are not at all in the place to hear that, and so you have to do it in ways that are more creative. And I think for me, Africa is a great way, because it begins the thought process of, like, what if it's not about me? What if it's about other things and what I can give as opposed to what I can get?